Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk, Real Stories. My name is Shayoni Lynn. I'm one of the co founders of the Asian Communications Network, and I'm delighted to join you today. And with me is Emb Hashmi. Em, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm M, and I always say to people, if you want to remember my name, always think about who James Bond's boss is. M, pronounced as the letter M. So I've been a journalist for a good 15 years. Most of that has been with the BBC, doing everything from storytelling for Radio 4, reporting, presenting, and producing across platforms, mostly news and current affairs. And I am also now a founder of Storytelling for CEOs, where we teach people how to tell your story in 30 seconds via our mini MBA, which is accredited. And we've got some amazing pre recorded exclusive masterclasses by Baroness and a TV presenter. And it's all about the narrative and the narrative behind why you do what you do, which is really important. And I did a TED talk last year and I had to tell my own story. And I found that really difficult because I've always been telling other people's stories. So yeah, that's me in a quick minute.
Quick nutshell. And M is also a board member for ACN, which is brilliant. So, what drew you into journalism in the first place?
That's a really good question. I don't think I could have ever told you when I was younger, when I grow up, I want to be a journalist. And there's a few reasons for that. One of that is there was nobody who was a journalist who looked like me. So I couldn't see it to be it. And second of all, my parents always got this image of journalists, being in wars and hurting, getting hurt and even getting killed. So for them, the little bit they knew about what a journalist was back then wasn't great, and I almost feel like journalism wanted me more than I wanted journalism, and I kind of fell into it because I did not know what I wanted to be. Obviously, my parents wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, a safe job, office job. I didn't want to do that. And then I remember I started a degree in law, and the first week I was like, this is not for me. And I dropped out. And thank goodness there was some vacancies at a new course, a new bachelor's degree, which was in media. And I just basically managed to get onto that. So that kind of worked out. And funnily enough, throughout my life, whether I was at school or university, I wrote for the school paper, I wrote for the free paper, I volunteered, I had a community radio show. Even then, I couldn't say, hey, I'm going to be a journalist when I grow up, kind of thing. It was just something that followed me.
Isn't that interesting? Because my previous career before public relations was journalism. And when I was in India, kind of to your point, you have this expectation to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. My dad's a doctor, so that expectation was very high in my family, and no one had done humanities. But to your point, I fell in love with writing and had the absolute privilege of working across a lot of media. But when you were starting out, like who or what kind of inspired you, especially as you kind of didn't think you were going to be a journalist, you kind of fell into it. Like what was your biggest inspiration back in the day?
Oh gosh, that's actually a tricky story because, as I mentioned, I didn't know I wanted to be a journalist. But then what I found is through journalism, when I was writing for the free papers, when I had my community show, I gave other people a voice to share their stories. And there were so many interesting stories out there. But more importantly than that, it's the stories that make impact. So people sharing stories of survival, stories of what services they offer for people who are struggling, these kind of things that there could be somebody listening or reading who's not brave enough to reach out, but can be inspired by that advice. And I felt that actually maybe that could be my niche. I for some reason people are reading these articles, people are listening to the show, and they're being inspired or even empowered to either get help or even step out of their kind of normal environment and try something different and something new. And like I said, when I grew up, I think the only person that kind of resembled who I am and what I look like was Lisa Aziz.
Mm.
Um, and I guess she was the only one, but I never thought in a million years that, oh, I could go on TV and present the news. Really, I couldn't think because there was nobody like me doing it. And I had no idea how to even do that. I thought that was for really famous people. So it was a very interesting journey.
Mm-mm. And you know, one of the questions I have that I always ask our interviewees on this mini show is, you know, what is the boldest career move you've made and how did it change things for you? I suppose starting your own business from being a journalist has been probably quite a moment in your life. So do you want to talk us through how you came about making that decision, what that journey looked like, and why storytelling for CEOs?
Another great question, Shayoni. So it's a really interesting journey, and people ask me this all the time, especially now I've got my business hat on and a tech startup. Um, I felt like when I was in journalism, there's two things happened. One thing is very quickly I realized that the reason I'm not rising like everybody else is because nobody knows who my story is. I was telling everyone else's story, and nobody knew who M was. M was just the person churning out these great stories. And then I realized that I had to tell who I was and tell my story to my editors and seniors to get the opportunities everybody else was getting. But because you're in a busy newsroom, you have to do it very, very quickly and make sure that it sticks. And I had to tell them, look, I have these language skills, I've got this access, I've got this great story. And then I started to move up. And then I realized very quickly that actually it's not just me with that issue. There's many people in many different sectors who have got storytelling, who really need to master storytelling, but very quickly. And I found out that I think business is the way I want to go, because I worked on BBC Business and I booked CEOs, and I felt that rather than reading off a piece of paper that a PR person has written for you, why don't I want to know who you are. I want to know why we should buy into your company, why your company really matters. And it's about, and you start with who you are, because now more than ever people buy you, and trust is massive, and the trust comes from the individual. So after about a year of development work, I found that actually storytelling for people in business, and I've called it storytelling for CEOs, but it's for everyone who's in business, whether you're a CEO, a C-suite director, a manager, or somebody who wants to be that director or manager. This is perfect for you. But I didn't want to do it in I'm going to come in and coach you kind of thing. I thought there's a lot of coaching out there. I want to reinvent the wheel. So I've launched, I work with universities, and I've launched, I believe it's the first ever mini MBA in storytelling. And it's 8 modules. And you could do the entire mini MBA in one day if you really wanted to, but then you could take a whole year. It's very flexible, because we're busy people. And it's married with storytellers from a baroness, like I said, to TV presenter, to news anchors, because I feel that when you listen to other people who have been telling stories for a considerable amount of time and being successful with it, you learn things from them. And I guess it's a kind of take from the US Masterclass series, but very business led and very people that look and feel like who you are. So when you see them, you're like, okay, I see myself in that person. And I feel that this was a real needed a skill, and especially the skill of, we need to tell our story very quickly, but very impactfully, because we have so much noise thrown at us now, whether it's from social media, the news, the radio, people, networking. It's just a busy, busy world. So we need to make a story stick in 30 seconds for that to then move on to something more solid, whether it's getting a new job, a promotion, a pitch, a sale. Doesn't matter. It's the framework is all the same, and we have our own unique IP that we use within that framework. And we kind of work with like medium and large companies, and they buy that in for their organizations and their teams, and their teams see growth. So that's kind of what we do within storytelling for CEOs.
Isn't that exciting? And so, how, as someone who also has their own business, tell me a bit more about your journey. How did it feel setting up your business, especially as it's quite recent, it's post-pandemic, and it's during quite a lot of geopolitical crisis, a lot of economic uncertainty. So, how did that feel as an Asian communications or journalism leader to go down that path?
If I'm very honest, terrifying. Absolutely terrified, because I'm not a person who likes to work by themselves. I've always been part of a team. I'm a team player. So stepping out and doing something by myself was really, really hard. And I had to question so many times, is this the path I really want to take? Do I really have what it takes to be a business person, a startup in tech? And to be perfectly honest, I guess it's a lot of what the word passed me, but
Happens
anyway,
to
it'll come back to me.
you
But
all the time.
yeah, I was absolutely terrified. But the more that I developed in business, the more I was learning, the more I was reading, the more I was developing the product and service that I have, the more confident I had, because I started speaking to people. I started getting advice from people in business. And then I felt, and then when I got people saying, this is a great idea, actually you'll do really well in this doesn't exist, what a great niche, it gives you confidence to say, okay, I'm doing something good, and I'm doing something right. I should continue this journey. And even now, although I've got a bit of a team behind me now, and amazing board of advisors and interns that I work with, and NatWest Accelerator, which I work with too, it's still scary, but less scary, if you know what I mean, because I have people there for me who got my back. So yeah, I was, to start off with, absolutely terrified. Imposter syndrome is the word that I was looking for, and that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, am I really a business person? I mean, I'm a storyteller, but can I really do a business? But yeah,
it's very true. I think, all of us I think, who start our businesses, or even all of us who look like us and work in the industries that we do feel vast amounts of imposter syndrome. We just have to remember that we are very good at what we do. We need to carry on with that mindset, right? So did you feel, as you made that transition from being a journalist at the BBC through to owning and running your own business, do you feel like you had to adapt or code switch to fit in, especially in new circles, when you're pitching and you're going into spaces that you previously perhaps didn't as a journalist? Like, do you feel like you had to code switch, and did that have an impact on you?
I feel the pivot, I guess it's, I worked mostly in breaking news environments where news is very, very quick. We're churning, we got to get news out, and I worked to very tight deadlines. And then business is a little bit different in the fact that building relationships with clients takes time. And I guess for me, the biggest shift has been that, to be patient, and to just sit back and build those relationships, talk to people, get to know them, and I guess for me, and I'm still learning this, is it will happen, but it takes time. And coming from an environment where I've had to do something very, very quickly, it's that I think has been the biggest learning. And when I talk to people now, business people, and I say that, they said, yeah, that is business, because you have to build the relationships, you have to go out, have a coffee with somebody, it takes months and months. And I'm like, wow. And somebody actually said to me today, it's because you've come from a fast-paced environment where you've had to turn something around sometimes within 10 minutes. And that's why you have that mindset. And I said, you're absolutely right. So yeah, I guess that is the biggest thing that I'm still learning and developing, and being patient, and waiting to see the results of everything that I've done. But also, I guess it's about learning from other people who have been in business. But because of who I, being a journalist, and I still got one foot into journalism, and I don't think I'll ever not be a journalist. I've always been a storyteller of some sort. I think people find it really interesting that I was a journalist, and that kind of opens the doors, and they want to know how, what, where, and because they come from business, they feel like, I don't know, maybe they think journalism is very glamorous, which is not. So yeah, it does open the doors, because people want to know more about what I've done, and I think it does give a level of credibility to the business as well, because we are about storytelling, and I've had this exceptional experience with a massive broadcaster.
Amazing. No, absolutely. And, sorry to burst a bubble, but that long lead time in developing relationships doesn't go away. So
No.
welcome to our world. Just thinking about, you talked about your family, and you said, there was an expectation, as we all kind of feel in these communities, to go into certain professions. So how did your family feel about your pivot, your new career? And how do you navigate your ambition and your family expectations or cultural expectations that a community puts on us? And has that kind of changed over time?
That's a really good question. Again, you have lots of good questions today.
Thanks very much. Thank you. What I would journalist.
What I would say is, when I told my parents that actually I think I'm a journalist, not that I said I want to be a journalist, because that's just the way everything happened. They really didn't get it, and they go, well, like, what on earth is a journalist? And it's more than anything to do with the fact that there wasn't anyone that looked like me, so they could say, oh yeah, so and so and so and so. Like, okay, now we get it. So there was like, what I mean, why don't you get a good office job? Why my dad's always thinks you should be a doctor, you should be a scientist. I don't know where he gets that from. I'm like, Dad, haven't got the brains for that. So there was a lot of expectations in that regard, because it's for them, it's a status symbol within their community, and saying, hey, my daughter's a doctor, a lawyer, because people recognize those names. Now, when I was obviously being part of the BBC community for such a long time, he started to introduce me as, oh, this is my daughter, she works for the BBC. And I'm like, Dad, what about my name? Hey, it's my name first. So it's in a proud way. And now I'm like entering business, and I'll be very honest with you, I didn't actually tell them when I started the startup. I didn't, because I was like, yeah, I'm still freelancing, I'm still doing BBC stuff. Because for me, I wanted to make sure that I built the strong foundation, that I wanted them to tell people, only close people, when I can show them the labor, the fruits of my labor, because I think that's when they start understanding, okay, she's making money now. This is being recognized. Because trying to explain to my parents, who are from a certain, a generation, that actually I teach, business people how to tell their story, is a whole different conversation. And trying to explain that to them is different, because my mom's used to seeing me on the television, and she's like, why are you not doing any more like TV stuff? And, why are you not on the news anymore? And she goes, that was a good job. And I'm like, okay, Mom, but this is really great too. And my mom kind of understands, but my dad's still a bit, what do you mean what are you doing your business in? Because, they're used to selling products like, this is a jar of sweet corn, I'm selling this. They're used to that. They don't understand the service kind of industry necessarily. But I think they'll understand when I make lots of money.
Yeah, there's always an educating the parents curve, and I can't say hand on heart that my parents still understand why I do. But, they're proud of it, and they talk about it in sometimes confused ways. But yeah, I'll take that. So, looking back at your very kind of diverse and interesting career, what would you say has been, a really tough moment that you faced, and what helped you get through it?
I think going from in journalism, going from having contracts where I've got regular work to then going freelance, that was, I think, tough, because we were through the pandemic. Everybody's work was uncertain, although journalism was like almost like a vital source of information for people. Working from home was another interesting one, in recording interviews and things from home, and pivoting and learning. And I also think being someone like me in media was hard. It wasn't easy, because when I started in the newsroom many moons ago, I can't tell you if even one person looked like me. So kind of trying to push myself in, wanting to do different things, and wanted to be that reporter who never looked like me. It was hard. It was really, really hard. And when I started, it was about put your head down, do your work, and you'll get noticed. But now it's not that at all. It's, if you've gone viral and you're 18, right, let's stick you on the news. Do you know what I mean? It's a whole different thing, and you've had to adapt very, very quickly. And also, like, pivoting into business, I guess what's hard for me is making those relationships and building them, and going into large corporations and saying, please just hear me out. Give me 5 minutes. Give me 30 seconds even. And then obviously doing the whole LinkedIn thing, because before, as a journalist, I've never had to contact anyone in LinkedIn necessarily. It's been different. And now I'm like, LinkedIn is for business. You got to contact people on LinkedIn, and then people don't reply. And you're like, oh my God, what have I done? Have I done something to offend them? No, you haven't. It's just the way LinkedIn works. So I guess that's been really a hard journey, but an interesting one as well. So I'm really careful about not annoying people on LinkedIn, and sending them too many spammy messages, and also not selling, because I don't sell on LinkedIn. But I'd love to learn more about what you do, because that's what I know. Okay, this is going to fit, or this isn't going to fit. So it kind of helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think such a balance, especially with all the AI slop that is flooding LinkedIn and other content platforms. I think having that authentic voice and that personality is so important. Do you have any anecdotes to share from your new business venture, or any kind of learnings that you think that our community could benefit from?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to pick a really like a small but powerful one. So I worked with a solo entrepreneur who did the program and mini MBA. And the first thing they said to me is, I do not know what my story is. And they were in the music industry and they put on musical events. And he said to me, I really want, I said, what's your ambition? And he said, I really want to partner with the CBSO. I want to be in the Royal Symphony Hall. I want to work with them. I want to work with the rep, like big organizations. And I'm like, okay, so tell me your story. And he really couldn't, he was just saying, throwing words at me. This is my background. This is my dad. This is me. And I was like, okay. So I worked with him and we got his 30-second story. And then I told him how you implement that within an email when you reach out to all of these different people. And I told him the importance in his industry about his story and why it's important to these organizations. And after working with him, he then went and emailed all of these people he'd always dreamt about working with. And I caught up with him about a month later and I said, how did you get on? He said, oh my God, I've got meetings with them. They really love what I do. They really liked my story. And I was like, okay. And I said, did it work? Your personal story, you getting in? He goes, that's exactly what happened. And he said, I didn't even know that was my story. And I want to now use it on my social media. And for me, for everyone out there, I think that is the biggest learning curve, because we go out, especially if we're in business, for example, and we sell, and it's not selling. You have to engage with people, and people buy people. So why should somebody trust you, or why should somebody even give you like 30 seconds of their time? It's because they like you. So what's your story? And I always say to people, you don't need to tell them anything personal, who you're dating, what you ate last night. That's not the personal story. It's about why you do what you do. What experience did you have in life that has made you the person that you are today? And that hooks someone, because in the news environment, I many times had to run into the studio and basically type out the breaking news straps that you see across the BBC News, for example. And I had to do it very quickly, but I had to make sure it's short words. People could read it quickly, but everybody understands it and make it accurate. So I knew the impact, because one of the things we learn in news is, especially with headlines, if you don't get the headlines right and people aren't interested and more importantly don't understand it, they'll flick off, they'll turn the TV off and move on to another channel. And that's the same with life.
Absolutely right. I think being succinct is so important in a world that's saturated with noise. You're of course part of ACN. You're on our board. What does being part of a community like ACN mean to you personally?
I think it's a really important organization, and I know one of the things and how it became is because there was misinformation about the Asian community in general, and that's East and South Asians, and following protests, etc. And I felt very powerful, very much that this is a voice for a community, rather than having lots of individuals with lots of separate voices. We need one voice, and that voice is a voice from the people who make the news, the people who market, who PR stories, and people who understand what's actually going on in the world and why it's happening, and how messaging is so important, and it stops disinformation. So for me, I think that is one of the most important things why I joined, because of the fact that it's a community that has one voice. One individual can only do and say so much, but many voices together, we can not just educate or echo the one message, but also help with disinformation and fake news, and also bring in and almost shining individuals who work for these incredible organizations who are of these diverse backgrounds, because we don't always hear about them. And before I joined ACN, I didn't know there were so many incredible people in marketing, in PR, in media, in senior roles in some of the biggest companies in the world who look like us. And I'm really proud that we've now got a mentorship, for people, so that you can see it and you can be it. And I guess that is what ACN is about, is that visibility, which is really important.
Yeah, it's so important, and a good plug for our mentorship, which we're very delighted to launch. And if you're interested in finding out more about mentorship cohorts going forwards, feel free to DM us. I suppose, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to someone watching today who perhaps feels, we've talked a lot about belonging and visibility, so perhaps feels that they don't belong. So what is that one piece of advice that you would like to leave them with?
I think one of the things that I could leave you with. And this actually came from my TED talk, because I thought, who is interested in my story really? But when I spoke about my barriers and the young women in the audience came up to me and thanked me, I think that kind of made everything like a full circle moment. So what I would say is, linked to that is, you do not know how powerful your story is until you tell it, because there will be people who will hear your story who you may help, either mentally, physically, or even help them get out of their, they might be stuck in life. So I always say, tell your story, because you have no idea the effect and the ripple effect that you could have. Even if nobody likes the story that you printed on LinkedIn or Instagram, there'll be somebody who read that, whose life you have indirectly changed. And I always say to people, just tell your story. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, it's the imperfect stories that really make the loudest noise in the world. So one advice I would say is, tell your story. You do not know the effect it could have on somebody who's in a much worse situation than yourself.
Isn't that true? Isn't that true? And what my closing questions, what are your top 3 takeaway when it comes to storytelling, or the quick wins in this game?
People by people. So always make sure when you are telling your story that you put you in it, and I put you in it right at the beginning, like the first 7 seconds. The other thing is, be personable. Nothing in life is about being like somebody else. You have to be you and be successful and happy within yourself. And again, it all starts with your story. And then thirdly, what I would say is, shout about your story. You may not want to, but if you want to succeed in whatever you do, whether you're just a volunteer for a charity or you're building a big corporation, people want to know a little bit about you. And when they find out a little bit about you, it opens a whole wardrobe of different questions and opportunities that you will not realize until you start talking. Because I did not know that I would ever be doing a TED talk until I started sharing my story and they reached out. And I couldn't tell you that I would ever have that opportunity. It wasn't listed anywhere. I didn't write it down as, I'd love to do this one day 10 years ago. It just happened. But that's because I shared my story. So you do not know the opportunities that kind of rise from that, and the visibility, how important the visibility is, because staying quiet doesn't get you anywhere.
No, grab those opportunities, definitely, especially if you're within Asian or underrepresented communities. Very important for us to, role model to our colleagues and to peers. So amazing, Em. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. And if our viewers and listeners want to find you, where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and I said to someone this morning, I am the only person with my name on LinkedIn, so I'm not hard to find. It's Emb Hashmi, and I'm on Instagram as well. And then we have the social media for Storytelling for CEOs, which is Storytelling for CEOs, one word. And then we also have a website, which is storytellingforceos.com. And one thing that we really encourage people to do, and you'll see across our platforms, is we take our sand timer out with us and we challenge people to tell your story in 30 seconds. And we've done everyone from a princess to an ambassador. And you realize how hard it is. And you can see all of that on our social media.
Amazing. Very, very exciting indeed. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And everyone, we shall see you for the next episode of Real Talk, Real Stories. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.